The title of this presentation is Captioning the Taliban, teaching students how to read historical photographs. But it could just as easily be, nothing is but what is not. This is a line from Macbeth, which is sometimes misremembered or paraphrased as, nothing is what it seems. And this, nothing is what it seems, is a maxim that is very hard to remember when we're looking at photographs, but it's also very important to remember. Our principal objective here is to use lots of photographs, including several of the Taliban before and after 9/11, to suggest ways in which you can help students look at photographs less as unfiltered records of an objective historical past, and more as man-made products that play a hugely significant role, not just in revealing, but also in creating what we think of as our historical past. This photograph was taken in Kabul Stadium in Afghanistan. One man appears to be leaving, and a boy seems to be arriving. We will return to this image, but in the meantime, let's look at some other photos. Now, in the most literal terms, what is going on here? Who are these people? Do they live here? Are they visitors? What about these people? How are they different from the first people? They're dressed differently, and the bald guy at least appears to be either going to or coming from work. But what are they all doing? Why are they standing around? Well, the answer becomes clear when you realize that both groups are part of the same photograph. Seeing the whole uncropped picture makes it obvious that this is all happening on September 11th, 2001, and that these people are watching the destruction of the World Trade Center, the event, of course, that ultimately triggered the fall of the Taliban. Are these first people tourists? Well, they might still be, but they are probably not taking photographs in the same way and for the same reasons that tourists typically take photographs of famous buildings. What about this photo? What's going on here? It looks like a guy taking a break to get some fresh air and make a call. Well, again, revealing the whole picture makes it fairly clear, at least for people who are familiar with the Washington, D.C. area, that this is taking place on 9/11, and the man is watching the Pentagon burn. But it's not just the relatively obvious process of cropping that can change our perceptions of what we're looking at. There are more subtle factors that also shape our interpretations. Now look at this picture. What do you see? What's going on? And when was it going on? Now look at the picture with the color from the original photograph restored. What do you see? Has your perception changed any? For your information, the photo was taken in December 2007, and these kids are dressing up as characters from Oliver Twist at a Dickens festival. What about this picture? Do you want to take a guess as to where it was taken, where these people live? Somewhere in India, perhaps, or Pakistan. Let's restore the color again. And now there are clues that might lead you to a different conclusion. The box of drink, for example, its distinctive purple coloring and large red lettering show that it's Ribena, a popular drink in the UK, and sure enough, the picture was taken in the UK, in the northern city of Leeds in 2005. Here's another example of something that can shape our perceptions of what we're seeing, and that's sequencing. The photos we look at before and after looking at a particular photo. Look at this baby, and make a mental note of any emotions that it provokes in you. Same thing with this teenager. This man? Now, if you knew they were all the same person, do you think your feelings about this teenager and this baby might change somewhat? In this example, how might your feelings about the threat presented by Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad change if, before seeing a photograph of Ahmadinejad addressing the UN, you saw this picture? Versus seeing the very same picture of him at the UN, but preceded this time by a picture of him smiling. Cropping, color, and sequence. These all affect how we interpret photographs. But there is one element of photography and photographic reporting that dwarfs the others in terms of shaping viewers' interpretations, and that's captions. According to Roland Barthes, the French literary theorist who wrote most explicitly about this, a caption performs what he called anchorage. That is, it fixes the meaning of the photograph. Here's an example from his book, Camera Lucida. Look at this photograph of the poet Marceline de Bourg-Valmont. Focus on her expression. What does that expression signify to you? Well, here's the caption Bart attaches to the photograph. Once you've read that caption, can you see anything other than slightly stupid virtuousness? Here's another example of the power of captions. This photograph shows the captain of the Belgian volleyball team, which early in 2008 was taking on Denmark for a place in the Beijing Olympics. What does his expression signify? Does the caption settle it? But what if you learn that this was in fact not the real caption, that the real caption was this? Two very different emotions, both of which can be illustrated by a single photograph. Here's a picture of the Pope taken late in 2008. Look at it for a few seconds and try and figure out what's going on. Does this caption help you? Or does it throw you off the scent, perhaps making it impossible to look at this picture in a way that reveals what is truly going on? Specifically, that the Pope is meeting with Ingrid Betancourt, the Franco-Colombian politician who was held captive by the Colombian guerrilla group the FARC for years, and who was freed in a James Bond-like rescue during the summer of 2008. These are trivial examples, taken from today's popular press with not much riding on viewers making the correct interpretation. But clearly, when we're dealing with historical photographs, the stakes tend to run much higher. Look at this photograph of the deceased Chechen rebel leader Aslan Maskhadov. Unlike his far more militant compatriot Shamil Basayev, the man who admitted masterminding the actions that led to tragedy at a Beslan school in 2004, Maskhadov had a pragmatic side and at times was able to work amicably with the Russian government, but never with Vladimir Putin. Anyway, how would these captions, both perfectly true, affect your perceptions of the man? What's this picture of? It's the Israeli separation barrier in the West Bank, and the picture of the girl being carried away by balloons was done by the British guerrilla artist Banksy. Again, consider these two 100% accurate captions, and see how your reaction to the photograph, the same photograph, might change. Sometimes the caption can be as simple as a date. How is your reaction to this photograph changed by seeing this date? And this one, seeing just a date and a location? What can you now conclude is going on here? Why are these people walking across this bridge? Well, they're all walking because this was the day Islamist militants detonated 4 bombs, bringing London's public transport system to a standstill, and forcing tens of thousands of Londoners to cross bridges and walk long distances home. What about this picture? With no help from a caption, what do you think Hillary is thinking? Now what do you think, having seen this caption? Well, September 10th, 1998 does not have the resonance of 7705 or 9/11/01, but it was significant for Hillary, as this next slide will make clear. It was only one day after the publication of the Starr report. The attachment of a place and date to a historical photograph is often a highly political act, and sometimes which place and date you attach makes all the difference. Now, what do you see in this photograph? And how might your perceptions change if you saw this caption? Or this one? If you were a Middle East specialist, you would know that if the correct caption was Al-Halabia, March 1989, then the woman in black was likely holding up a photograph of friends or family killed by Saddam Hussein. You would assume they were killed in the Al-Anfal campaign, which was an ethnic cleansing program undertaken by Saddam Hussein in the late 1980s to transform Kurdish cities in Iraq into majority Arab cities. If, on the other hand, Haditha, June 2006 was the correct caption, then the woman in black would probably have been holding up a photograph of friends or family killed by US troops, because it was in June 2006 that reports first came out of Haditha that the previous November, US troops patrolling the streets had gone on a murderous rampage after a roadside bomb killed a Marine. 24 Iraqi civilians, including several children, died on that day at the hands of US Marines. Here are some of the victims, recalled here in a simple 4x6 photograph. And another, and another. And here's the picture we started with, a bride and groom, killed late in 2006 by US Marines.